Today's episode is called Running Late, and it involves two things that I detest, running and being late. So today's episode is all about how we're never feeling on time in life, how we're always just feeling behind. How are you doing today, Kat?
Well, I believe we have both inspired the topic of this episode this morning.
Yeah, definitely. Fighting the grain at this moment would be a really good description of how I'm feeling. Like
Fighting the grain?
Going against the grain. Like I'm not even going. I'm like in the grain, and I am. I'm like, no, we should be going this way.
Yeah.
It's not against the grain. It's like I'm fighting it. So for just to give everybody a little bit of background why we're calling this episode Running Late, Kat and I really like to be on time. We find it kind of a personal pet peeve when we're late for stuff. And then sometimes life just wants to teach you that being late might be okay, because I came home to people renovating my patio. Apparently that was going to happen. Nobody told me. So there's loud noises outside. I'm leaving tomorrow morning and I got like a full afternoon. So we're just trying to get everything together. And it's just, swimming upstream is probably a better one than fighting the grain. But, I said that and I was going to stick with it and I regret it. Kat, tell me about how you're feeling right now with the whole running late thing.
Well, as you know, I loathe running late. I hate the feeling of being late. And I also won't say hate, strongly dislike it when other people are late. I just feel like it's a respect thing, and like I had one babysitter I absolutely loved. She was 5 minutes late every day. And like my brain just couldn't comprehend, like, just get up 5 minutes early, to me,
yeah, I get that.
I like it does not compute for me. It is like one of my pet peeves in life. So I did it to myself this morning, and my daughter had once a week, each kid has early orchestra and early band practice. I don't know. These things rotate. It was on my calendar. She had to be at school at 7:40. I don't know why I thought it was 8, but I did. And I got both kids up early, all lovingly, and scratched their backs and softly woke them up and made their lunches and thought I was doing great. And then all of a sudden my daughter, like in a panic, was like, I've got to be at school in 2 minutes. And she was frazzled, which made me frazzled. And I'm like trying to do the whole like 5-year U thing that we teach. And I'm like holding her hand, walking to school. And I'm like, just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And she was like, it's fine, Mom. And I'm like, just look, by the time you get to orchestra, you could at least do 5 breaths, And like, luckily we live like 2 blocks from school, and she was ready and her lunch was ready. And I believe she even took a bite of her bagel this morning, but it's just that frantic energy. Then I came back home. You've got construction. We're trying to record episodes this morning because we're heading to a conference tomorrow. Can't find my AirPods. Can't get my other headphones to pair. I believe I am wearing some free Delta headphones. What do you call these? I don't know. I found them in my son's room, so I took them. I didn't even know if my iMac had a port for these, but God dang it, they did. So I'm really happy about that today. So now this episode won't have any echoes, and I hope my producer loves us extra today because I'm wearing these free Delta headphone thingies instead of my AirPods.
I feel like when you say free Delta, I like immediately think I'm on the plane right now, and I'm like putting my hand up for the extra set of headphones just in case.
I mean, they came in handy.
Yeah, like even as you're recording this, like my internet kind of dropping and I missed it and then it catches up and stuff.
Oh,
so
my Lord.
I think it's just
today,
like,
y'all. We are here. We are trying today.
But that's just it. Like we're trying. One of the things that because I went and picked up my kids and took them to school too, and it's start of the week energy, which is always so much fun for everyone, and especially, you add all these other things on. So that stressed energy is in the car, that nervous energy. And then I'm trying not to take it on, but I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you, but dear listener, I don't know about you, but I find that if somebody else is like super stressed in my vicinity, it's like I drink from a garden hose of
Yeah.
anxiety in that moment. And was that a good one? Garden hose of anxiety? I don't think that was good. Okay. We'll just keep going with it, though. This is the episode of Bad Metaphors, folks. Welcome. We're
Every
glad you're here.
episode is an episode of that.
But this one, I am not going to dig myself out of the hole. I'm just going to keep going deeper. But okay, so like with your daughter, when that happens, it's like, I'm going to be late. Or what was the thing that came to my mind?
Yeah.
So you're late. You get in. The big fear is, and I'm going to use giant air quotes, is I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Which, is kind of silly in one sense as adults, because we know that, if we're late for work, the boss might get mad. Yeah. If we don't meet our deadlines, bad things will happen. But we extend those kind of bigger things to everything in life. And when we do that, it really is this ball of stress that we carry around with us, going like everything is a bomb waiting to go off. And I've lived my life like that, thinking that everything was so massive, and it's such a hard way to live. Do you relate to that at all?
Yeah. I mean, I relate to a couple of things you said. First, we're both empaths, right? So we soak up the energy. And I just wanted to share one thing we're both trying to practice. Is kind of like we will even evil. Wow. We will we will even like physically do a zip up. Right. We will even say like, I am zipping up my energy. I'm not going to let other people affect my energy, because as empaths, Andrew and I can watch like a sad commercial and both cry, So the kids, these 4 beautiful, amazing kids we love so much. Of course, when they're sad, we're sad immediately. These are the humans closest to us that impact us the most in the best ways too. And
Absolutely.
So we feel what they feel. And I never want a day to start bad. And yeah, I guess that feeling of getting in trouble, right? I'm sure my daughter's fear was you don't want to be embarrassed. You don't want to walk in late. Like she was like 1 minute late walking in, and I saw like 2 other moms parking and walking in. So I was like, look, you're not the only one. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Okay, bye. She was like, Mom, my lunch. I'm like, here's your lunch. Goodbye.
I think that is a really big one. Is just kind of like, you're not the weird one, but it really is taking that fear of running late and then moving it beyond that question. Like, if I'm late for my plane tomorrow, then that's bad.
There's consequences.
That's a very stressful thing. Yeah, there's a consequence to that. It's
not like in trouble, right? But like there's consequences. If you have a big meeting or a presentation and you're late, there's consequences. So yeah, there are some scenarios where being late is super not ideal. You don't want to get fired from your job because you like stroll in there whenever you want. But of course, because we have to always make a metaphor out of something, I thought that we could talk about the overall concept of feeling late, feeling behind, feeling like we should be further. And we've talked about this before, right?
I would say that feeling late is just it's your eye on the goal in front of you, right? Like we're not talking about like time things throughout the day. That's a different kind of late. We're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I usually am. And it's about feeling late in your life as a general rule, where you're like, everybody else has done so much. I haven't done these things. Everybody else has gone to this place. I haven't gone. Everybody else has this type of home, this kind of car, this type of thing. I don't. I am late to this part of life. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, and we've discussed it before, and one of the things I brought up, and you said you hated these things, was like there'll be articles every now and then that was like, what your retirement amount should be at each age or whatever. And of course, like I look at it and I'm not where I'm supposed to be, quote unquote. And and you've said that you hate that because everyone's goals look different. Some people can live on a lot less than others, and like everyone's quote unquote number will be different. And so
Mhm.
I wanted to bring to light just the feeling of being behind everyone else. And I wanted to point out also that there are so many quote unquote late bloomers. There's so many people who started businesses, later in life, in the second half of their life. There's so many people that, you know, rose to the challenge, wrote a book in their 60s. There's so many examples of that if you look. And nobody's late. Everyone is on their own timeline. And this is something I need to remind myself of often.
Yeah. And so there's two things that come to mind. First of all, you're right. You're always on time. You're having a life experience. It's your life. And the second you start looking outward for as a comparison to make yourself feel bad, because I can't think of why you would look outside of yourself in those, like when you're looking at the next goalpost to achieve or mile marker. Um, I think when we have those moments, it's just reminding ourselves, A, do we want those things that other people have? And if we do, that's fine. It's just accepting that a lot of times we just have FOMO. And when we ask ourselves, and we've talked about this on other episodes, is like when you actually dig into it, do you want that? Or are you just actively looking for a way to feel bad? And I can say with 100% certainty, I am often looking for a reason to feel bad about things. And I'm really working on discovering the happiness. So there's two parts of that. You can look at the gap or the gain. And when you look at the gap from where you are to where you want to be, life is hard. But when you look back at all you've gained, it's so much better. And I'm trying to practice that more and more. And it really is a perspective shift. You just need to give yourself permission to look at things through your own eyes with authenticity in a way that supports you rather than beating yourself up. Cause I've beat myself up my whole life. It's got me things. It's motivated me. It's pushed me. Running behind, like feeling behind or running late is something that has been very motivating, but it's come at the cost of my health and
Yeah.
stress and anxiety and all these things. So I think what was really going on when we say we're running behind, we're falling behind, which is maybe part of it too, is that we just have to understand that you're not. You're just starting late. Our favorite conference to go to is the Hay House Conference. That was started by Louise Hay when she was 65. She started a book publishing company in her 60s. And she
Yeah.
lived into her 90s, and she literally worked until she passed away. And I always think of that story and I'm like, gosh, I got 20 more years before I have to start my publishing company. That's pretty cool. And giving yourself those stories will really help motivate you to go that you are never behind. You're exactly where you're meant to be. And when you can embrace that, everything becomes easier.
Yeah. I really love that. And I love looking at examples of that. Um, when I was trying to get my book published, I would often look up examples of like how many times people got rejected before they got a book deal. And I'd be like, oh, this famous author got rejected this many times and this many times and this many times. So I got to keep going, and I ended up getting rejected 27 times. And the 28th one was the one that said yes. And it was tough. And I think, Vera Wang started designing after in her 50s, the, KFC starter, the man who started KFC, I
Colonel
think
Sanders.
what, yeah, 50s, 60s,
Yeah, he
starting
was retired. Yeah.
Yeah. So it ain't over till it's over. Nobody's late. I feel like this is going to be a theme in every episode. The only reason that we feel bad or we feel behind or we feel like we're late in life is because of this like invisible checklist that society says that we have to do. And we have to follow this script in order to be happy. And I think that, millennials have really flipped the script on work. It used to be you work at the same place until you're 65 and you retire. And a lot of millennials have gone, location independent, remote work. They change jobs a lot more compared to like our parents and grandparents who would work at the same place for their whole career. And so I think that slowly things are changing, but you have to decide for yourself that you're on your own timeline. And I have to remind myself of this all the time. And I've talked about it in many episodes, how I have felt behind, how I have seen, people my age in completely different scenarios. And I just need to be proud of myself and proud of kind of pulling myself up from my bootstraps and kind of restarting my life, not even from zero, but from less than zero after my divorce and having to basically rebuild everything from my business to my finances to everything. And it's a long life, God willing. And it's only been a handful of years since I had to restart everything. And there might be times in your life, listeners, where you have to restart everything. My parents went through Hurricane Katrina. They had to restart everything. They got 8 feet of water in my childhood home, and their 20-year business basically got wiped out. And they were able to sell off, parts of it, but not the whole thing. And they had to completely restart, move, new house, new jobs, everything. And there are people, as we're recording, who are going through the same thing. We just had 2 major hurricanes come through the US, and all of those people are going to have to pause and rebuild and restart and, use some of their savings and hopefully insurance money and all these different things. And it's going to be like a mile marker in your life. And I don't think anyone gets out of life unscathed. We all have these prominent mile markers of incidents, trauma, health scares, losing loved ones. We all have these like moments where, we don't know what the timeline's going to be when they happen or how long it's going to take to bounce back from them.
Yeah. And I think for anyone listening who might be dismissing themselves, and I'm starting to say this more and more to people, when you start to look back at how far you've come, because I think, Catherine, I know we've talked about this off air. 5 years ago, you would not believe you were in this place. And, it's not perfect, but you are in a much better situation than you ever have been in a lot of ways. And it's hard I think a lot of times we look at the numbers and that's kind of the quantitative thing that we look at. But the qualitative stuff, like the happiness, the life, the joy, the just a better place, those are all things that are worth considering as well. But your trauma, it should never be dismissed or compared to somebody else's because it's yours and it's what you're going through. And yeah, some people go through, a 10 in trauma. They live through hurricanes and stuff like that, but they might have a resilience of an 8 in their life. So going through a 10, it grows you. Whereas somebody who is at a 1 going through these small traumas, like you might see with children, those are big traumas to them. And I think that's another thing to keep in mind is that there's no good trauma, I guess, maybe is there's only the one that you went through, and that's it's yours, and that's your journey. I wanted to say something else about this whole running late thing and feeling behind and all that stuff. So whether it's a time situation where somebody's late and coming to see you, like a babysitter, or you're running late, or your kids are running late, or you feel behind, there's a positive to this. And I kept asking myself now, like, what is the good draw from this? And what it is compassion. You are getting the chance to practice compassion for yourself, for those around you, and for the world as a whole. And the world needs more compassion right now, more than ever. So when we get frustrated, because I do too, very much so, especially with the running late thing, when I'm late, I am stressed. That's a really good chance for me to go, you know what, Andrew? You're doing the best you can. You can't control traffic. You can't control your internet being wonky or, the people working outside or all these things. You just are doing your best. You're showing up in the best way that you can. And that's okay. Just have compassion for yourself. And when someone is late, have compassion for them too. Think about what their world must be like so that they just can't seem to get on time. Like, because I have worked with people on their timeliness issues, and bless them, there are self-worth issues there. There are all these underlying themes that we don't think about. We just look at the surface thing and go, you're late. That's rude. And that's something that we were learned to condition. What happens if we had been conditioned in the beginning, like somebody's running late, something really bad must be going on. We should give them a little more compassion. It's just how we can flip the script on this at any point that we want. We just need to practice it. So that was kind of the thing that was coming to my mind right now is like, how do we counter this in ourselves? Because that's really what we're talking about here. And for me, it's compassion. What do you think about that, Kat?
Yeah, I like that. I think that I could always use a heavy dose of compassion and patience, both for myself and others. I think that, speaking kindly to ourselves and, this is something I mentioned in a previous episode. I started going to a new therapist since I moved to a different state. And the main thing she wanted me to work on was just self-compassion and kind of giving myself credit and, having the voice in my head be kind to myself. And so I could look at this morning and I could think like, well, dummy, right? Like it's in your phone, it's in your calendar, the thing you look at all the time. If you would have been more on top of the thing, your kid would have been less stressed and had a smoother morning, all these different things. Or I could say like, well, because you got up and had their lunches ready and all their different things, like you were able to leave the house in like 20 seconds after she said she had to go. And like we get to choose, right? How
Mm-hmm.
we talk to ourselves. And the vast majority of us, myself included, will always beat ourselves up first. So something that I'm working on is pulling up the good things, the nice things. And even just saying like, it's so super awesome that we're like 2 blocks from school. Like that's sweet.
Yeah,
It's like
it is.
easy peasy. And I could be like, and see, you weren't the only one. As you walked up 1 minute late, 2 other moms drove in. They had to drive, all these different things. It's fine. And neither one of us, my daughter, me, we're not going to remember this day. We're not going to remember this. It wasn't that big of a deal. And I think also it's good for me personally to be late every now and then. So I'm not so hard on other people who are late since it's like my number one pet peeve. So I think like
That's a little
it,
humility. Yeah.
yeah, it's reminding me of that sometimes it happens to me too. And it's fine. As long as you don't do it every single time we're supposed to meet, it's fine.
Yeah. I good for you, because I think a lot of times we can get just in that rut of feeling like just anger. And when I look at this, I think when you can turn back and look at things with a little bit of hindsight, it always helps. So if you can go back through your morning and just kind of see the good things that you did, you'll feel a little bit better. And the more you practice that, the more you kind of shift your brain. And I have a giant prick voice in the back of my head. It's right here, and it just lambaste me with negative things constantly, and I am working on that.
That's a big word for you. I like
I Googled it.
that.
No, I'm just kidding. I didn't. But you know what? Sometimes you got to look at things and you got to go like, why is this happening for me?
Yeah.
And this morning, you and I, Kat, we were not at our finest before this episode. And I think we both would agree to that. And here we are, 25 minutes in, and I can see now that, you know what? The reason why this was happening for me is because I feel like this is one of our more authentic episodes that we've had in our show's history. But I also feel like it just was a very, very needed thing to go like, look, Jill, you got to figure out how you're going to handle these things within yourself. So talk about it. So this is running late is an issue that both of us, it stresses us out on multiple levels. And I feel like we kind of got to cover this. So now looking back on I'm grateful we were quote unquote running late today, because I think it led to something very important for both of us.
Yeah, and I think the main takeaways here for our listeners, and something we like to remind our listeners, is that Andrew and I are right here along the journey with you. We say this often, but we are not high on the mountaintop looking down saying, this is how you should be. We are day to day also working towards self-improvement, personal development, and we are also trying to be our best selves in 5 years. And today is one of those days that humanized us. And the lesson today, and one that I am continuously learning and working on, is that none of us are behind. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. And we're exactly on the timeline in our lives that we're supposed to be. And we're here on this earth to learn lessons. And you're not late. And there's always time to do what you were meant to do.
Very well said. I think from there we can move on to our glimmers. So, Catherine, what is your glimmer this week?
Well, if you are watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a hot pink sweater. This is my latest thrift find. I like to share my thrift finds with you guys. And, sometimes I come across my exact size and my exact favorite color with a V-neck, because I cannot stand anything else besides that, because I'm weird. And it was new with tags, baby. New with tags. That's my glimmer.
Nice.
What's yours?
I like it. This weekend was Canadian Thanksgiving, and I've never been big on these kind of things, but I know I got to do stuff for my kids, especially post-divorce. And I had this huge pressure to do something, and I just kind of gave myself permission to do the thing that made the most sense. So I took my kids to a funny movie, and we laughed and we had a good time. We did a little shopping, and then we went out for a nice dinner, and we had a really good conversation about just things going on in the world and where they're at and stuff. And I gave myself permission to let go of the stereotype of what a holiday should be as far as Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything else goes. And that's my glimmer, is that a tradition is just something somebody else started a long time ago that everybody else said, okay, and you can start a new tradition whenever you want. And you can stop the old ones too.
I love that. That's awesome. Happy Canadian Thanksgiving, eh?
Yeah, thank you, eh? It's super good, eh? All right, everybody. All right. We hope you have a great week. And if you're running late, give yourself some compassion.
I agree. Bye.
Hey, one last thing. Don't forget to go to 5yearyou.com/future to start getting those emails from your future self. It will change your life.
Hey guys, quick disclaimer. We're podcasters on the internet. If you need to seek professional help, please go see your healthcare professional.